I I'm gonna make this video about the devil. Uh, just this is a rendition of what I believe him to be. Personally, honestly, I do not believe in the devil or God or any of that stuff. I believe it all to be complete and utter make believe, but and understand why. And it's been quite successful. But I'm gonna make this video to I don't just to more or less get it off or out of my head. Now I've studied quite a few religions. There are several in my family, all of them very strict. I am oddly and probably not surprisingly the black sheep of it, and I don't believe in any of them. Now I've seen lots of YouTube videos. I've seen Christians yelling and screaming at people, and that absolutely and completely ludicrous church demonstration of when these people thought the world was ending and they have to wail and yell. I don't even remember the man's name. It was so one of the most ludicrous things I've ever seen in my life, and has quite a religious following, if you can imagine. All the way up to what the evangelicals are trying to do, what every church group is trying to do, what the Jewish community is trying to do, what the Hindus, Shintoism, Satanism, Luciferianism. I almost misspelled that. And that one's been around a lot longer than almost all of them. And there was an original, it was actually given a name. I didn't remember it at this moment, but I'll put it in the notes of the video because I know I've got it written down somewhere. But the devil as a character, as a man, supposed to be God's enemy. God's he was cast out of heaven, and I've heard the most fantastic and read some stories that these religious leaders through a millennium have pushed as to who he is and what's happened, and all the way to I've heard the devil's a woman. I've heard the devil is a disease. I've heard the devil is a collective group of a bunch of people that all come together for the same goal. I've heard he was an angel, and then he became the head of demons. There is not one solid story or baseline to him at all, except that he's bad. That's the only, in fact, so much so that seems to be the emphasis of this by everybody these days, is that even when you talk about him, notice that there's a downward inflection when you say it. It's like, oh, we're going to go and study about the devil, or no, that's a picture of Satan. You see what I mean? And the whole thing is just dumb. The Church of Satan, I personally don't know anybody in it. I understand that they do their rituals and they do their things and whatever. Honestly, my personal opinion, which I usually don't give in a lot of these, or I try to keep my personal opinion away from it because my personal opinion is my opinion. I don't want to sway anybody. You think for yourself, use your own mind. But I think that the regular religion that worships God and Jesus is much more evil than the Church of Satan will ever be. And in fact, I'm going to explain who I think the devil is and what I think the devil is. And I mean, you can believe whatever what you want. It certainly has no bearing on me. But I believe if there was a devil, this is what I believe he would be. At first, yes, it would be a man. Every religious connotation, with the exception of temptation in the Garden of Eden, which was a woman, half snake, half woman. That was later changed because women didn't like it. But they haven't been treated any better since, so they might as well just let it stand. But it was certainly not the devil. The devil didn't tempt anybody. That was a woman that came in. Anyway, moving on. And that goes way back. We're probably 25,000 years ago ish, 24 maybe, where they started to, because they saw things in the sky. They saw meteors and comets and different things, and had to explain it somehow. There's different lights. There's the aurora borealis, which has changed every couple of 100 years. It changes slightly or a little bit. Colors used to be red and orange also. They've gone with our pollutants and everything else that's put in there. All types of things. Volcanoes that explode, thousands of miles away, still put light into the atmosphere that you can see when you have no light pollution and other things. I mean, there's a lot of events that happened way back when that they just tried to explain this all. And religion is a logical way to try to explain it. We don't know what it is, but this is the best we can figure out. It wasn't until after the Canaanites and Canaan that it became a prophet. And but I'm not going to go into that, because last time I did, I got deleted off of YouTube. So there is some truth that you're not allowed to tell, even though it's written down in religious text. But anyway, moving on. The devil. Abaddon, Hades, Hallel, which is one of my personal favorites, and Hallelujah is an old praise to the devil. It's Hallel. It's Hallelujah, Hallelujah. It's and you're supposed to say it on your knees. That's how they did it. But anyway, moving on, because it's all that's been twisted. You can see how easy someone can make something it's not. But if the devil, and there are people, let me stress this, there are people that are waiting for him to show up. Physically, in the flesh, in the form of a man, waiting for him to show up. I've heard everything from Satan is responsible for numbers. And if all of this was right, I could go on a bunch of specter, but let me talk about it as if it's real. Again, I'm emphasizing my personal belief. No, I don't believe it's real at all. But I believe nature is real. Everything else is horseshit. But I'm going to talk about him as if he's real now. If the devil did live way back when, then yes, he would have been Jesus. That would have been one of the many times, and it would have happened because Satan would, if we were to believe, if you add up all of the stories, I'm going to try to figure out how to explain this so that even children will be able to understand it. If you add up all of the stories and you compile everything as if you're a computer, and you synthesize what you know as complete bunk out, and then compile everything, and then absorb the knowledge that fills in the gaps, then this is what this is my interpretation of that. Earth would be his prison. That's why it's so far away from everything else. He was allowed to witness God build it, design it, and days, I don't know where that could have possibly come from. The Jews made it up. They view days as the sun. They also believed that the earth was flat. And, of course, God would have known better had he have been real. Well, anyway, without putting any of that in there, then this would have been his prison for disobeying. And there's a very old story that goes along with how Satan or Lucifer or the devil or whatever you want to call him, because it's all the same person. There are not, 1,000 different demon lords roaming around hell following a commander. That's just as make-believe as everything else that a religion could possibly do. But I'm going to tell you the story. Now, when Satan... Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to make that I'm gonna make that another video. I'm not gonna say it during this one. Okay. The people that let me go back to the people that there's actually people looking for him. They're waiting for him. There are people that believe that they are part of a bunch of other people that collectively they are Satan. Well, how the fuck could that possibly be? If Satan is a man and he's a person, and it has been written and documented in several different religions that he was a man and a person, and an adversary to kings and assisted other people, then certainly it's not a collective group. So you can throw that the fuck out. That's just dumb. Wishful, but dumb. If you... The way that the Christian religion speaks is that there are two. There is the Antichrist, and then there's actually Satan himself. But Satan is so omnipotent, so powerful, he would never be able to be seen or known or there. He sends his son, and his son is the one that takes over. And the chosen one, or I think of the way the story goes, or the chosen one impregnates some chosen whore, and then the Antichrist is born from that. And then the Antichrist will supposed to grow up. I think the last more solid story that I have understood is that after the whore gives birth, then the Antichrist is identified, and then is supposed to have 666 on his body or something like that. That's visible to show who he is. And then he is supposed to appear himself as the Messiah or as Jesus would, and, solve all kinds of problems and do all kinds of things. And people will start worshiping him and believing that he is the Messiah or the chosen one or whatever the case may be. So then he goes into politics, if you can fucking believe that. And, people follow him and they do what he says, and then he becomes world leader, and then he ends up destroying everything and killing everybody and mass disease, and then Jesus comes back and they have this massive battle that's supposed to last however long, and then he's thrown into the bottomless pit, which is supposedly in Israel somewhere, of course, and, whatever. After the rapture, of course, when tribulation is finished. This is a Christian religion, by the way. Christians. We can easily get into the other ones, and it gets funnier the more, But the rapture, of course, is God. All of the repentant ones, all of the ones that are deemed worthy to enter heaven and are being spared the battle on earth between heaven and hell, which is supposed to take place here. And he commands his armies, and they fight, and it's to take over the third temple of Jerusalem. I've heard the devil builds the third temple on the Rock Mount or whatever, and then which they're clearing out. They are actually clearing the old temple out. They are opening rooms and stairways and chambers. They're still doing this, and they are cleaning it. There are books inside there that they will never ever release or tell anybody about. There are well, I don't know if they're documents is the right word. There's gold, there's paraphernalia, there's jewelry, there's beads and things. There were sandals. There were some things that supposedly belonged to some prominent religious people of the past, kept in there in this temple, because it's illegal. Nobody's ever been allowed in. But they're redoing all of this now, right now, in reality. They are clearing this out, clearing rooms. People haven't been in these rooms in thousands of years. It's very restricted, very limited. There's been documentaries about it. Israel, of course, is extremely excited, and so is the United States for some odd reason. But moving on, and then there's peace on earth for 1,000 years, or the devil goes to the bottomless pit for 1,000 years, or whatever it is. I've also heard stories that the devil takes over the Vatican after the Pope is assassinated, and proves to everybody by some form of magic or satanic powerful feat of something that he does, proves to everybody in Vatican City, which was created for him. They just didn't know it at the time, or he takes it over, and that's why the cardinals wear red. They're designated. It's a designated color of authority. In Satanism, that's why the priests wear black. It's a designated color in Satanism. That's why all the royal guard in let's face it, any country that they believe they matter, all royal guard, all police, the highest levels of court, law, and system, and order, and governance are all red and black. They're all ceremonial colors, including the royal guard in the royal family, all of that. And they're all a part of it, are all prepared, apparently, and waiting for the actual Satan to show up. And St. Peter's Basilica is his home. His needs, so to speak, are taken care of underneath St. Peter's, and the rooms are labeled by letters. Then there is a 6,666 seat underground caved arena in the shape of a snake's head, where he is supposed to govern the world from, as it's reinforced throughout the rock with impenetrable steel and iron plates. I've never... Anyway, moving on. And that's where he's supposed to... that figure of... He's the man of the woods. The man of the wood, or whatever it is. It's got the statue of Satan coming out of the woods. He's coming out of nature, is what that's supposed to symbolize. And supposedly one piece of wood, which is a lie. That's not one piece of wood. It's a bunch of pieces of wood put together to make it. And the Pope has actually had the fucking nerve and the balls to sit on the stage in front of it, which if there was a living Satan, he would be instantly murdered for, in a very terrible way. Because also, there's a pedestal. It's in the center of St. Peter's. Well, it's in one of the corners of St. Peter's. The letters that are around the top... I wish I had a picture to show you. Well, you can go online and look at it. There's an altar. It's got 4 pillars. They're made of solid marble. There's also 24 karat gold, and strewn throughout it. The marble's gray. And it's a platform. You have to step up onto it. That is another place that the devil is supposed to... Well, they say Jesus, which is the same person. It's the same thing. Is supposed to give his orders in front of the church as a whole. Never public. No public is ever allowed to ever go in there. Never. So they broke that rule too. No one is to ever see what the devil sees with his own eyes. Nobody is to ever look at him. You don't look at him. When he comes in, it's announced, which is the same pattern as all world leaders try to follow now. There's an announcement. He's coming. You get on your knees and you stare at the floor. If he chooses you to speak, then he will let you know. That's the protocol of Satan. They don't follow any of that because they don't ever believe it's going to happen. However, there are thousands of people, priests and regular people, that are taught generation after generation after generation, and have been for thousands of years, this is no lie, watch people or watchmen or black watchmen or watchers, or there's a whole bunch of names for these people, and they look for them. There are certain signs. They believe it's going to be numeric, or there's something going to happen in the sky or in space that's supposed to clue everybody in. Oh my God, he's here. Or, holy crap, what do we do? I'm going to give you what I think is going to, and there's to prepare. That is the New World Order from a religious standpoint. They are getting everything ready and hope he is pleased with what they've done. They have enslaved the entire mass of people, have complete systems of control in place all over the world, or the countries that they deem matter, along with at least, there are 48 countries now that are complete access to be used at whatever he chooses to use them as. And then they're expecting him to divide the kingdoms. That's why there's 8 doors behind Jesus Christ, and the Last Supper is supposed to be 8 kingdoms. They pre-named them, which is very thoughtful. And now, we can go into theology and everything that's written down. Judaism believes that the sun will turn 10 times as bright as it is now, that the Messiah will return, and that everyone that isn't Jewish will be killed, and everyone that is Jewish will be praised and in perfect health, and the earth will return to cleanliness and whatever else. We go on and on and on and on. And Shintoism he is supposed to be a warrior, and he is an unkillable warrior, which means he's immortal. All the other religions, he will be immortal but mortal. He'll have a magic ability, or he'll have control over nature, or he'll have this, or he'll have that. Be able to do miracles that no other man can do, aside from being mortal. He can die, which is why he has to live in a fortress, so you can't get to him. Also notice that every Masonic temple, which their main symbol is a triangle, which is a satanic symbol, that's his, means the strongest force in nature, which is what the devil would be. Notice all of the Masonic lodges look like little fortresses. They're like little tiny fortress temples. You ain't going to get in there. You can shoot all you want. The walls are 2 feet thick, 3 feet thick? Just take notice. Anyway, all these people are waiting. They're all just waiting. The history of people that have claimed to be the devil has never stood. There's never been a living man that has proven himself, and not by request, because I don't believe the devil will do that. In fact, you're not going to have any clue who the hell he is, because there's also a very large group of people that don't want to give up the power that they have right now, and sure as hell ain't giving it over to him, because then they have none. And just like in the movie, what's that movie? The Lord of the Rings, there's only one Lord of the Ring, and he does not share power. It would be the same, and I cannot believe I just quoted a movie from Tolkien. Anyway, moving on. And no, he's not going to share anything with anybody, because Earth would be his prison. It's his home. Man was created to keep him company and to play with. That's it. That's why he had short lifespans. The Jews wrote 900 years, Adam? Yeah, bullshit. Years? There was no time then. How did you even get a time? Time has not been, it's always been governed by the sun and kind of formulated. We have no idea. Well, I have an idea of what year it is. What actual year it would be if you go by a 365-day year. And it would probably take about 15 years to do the math to come up with at least a ballpark figure. You're way off. Absolutely and completely fucking way off. And I gotta just tell you that now. Nobody has any idea. In China, it's 5,000 something. I made a video about time. We have no idea. And sure as hell, Satan isn't going to go by anybody's time. So you can kiss that goodbye, because he'll do what he wants when he wants, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. the definition of what would be a living Satan or Lucifer or whatever, as this being has permanent prison, because he can't go anywhere, he can't do anything. And just to add a little side note to that, I'll be damned if any of you ever go anywhere either. That's just the way that is. But, and it will be just, to him, probably hilarious tragedy after hilarious tragedy. Just as everything that man does, because it's stupid. It's just, take a good look. Art is absolutely beautiful and wonderful. What the price for it is ridiculous and destroys the whole thing. There are other designs and things that man has done since they've wandered around, but for the most part, sit and think to yourself what we have actually done that would be universe worthy. Absolutely and completely nothing. We have absolutely nothing to offer except violence, hate, rape, perversion, disgust, lies, deceit, bullshit. You're in Satan's prison. It's written down in there's 16 or 17 religious books that govern all of the religions of the world that are practiced right now, aside from the one that somebody is trying to make up in their bathroom or whatever. And 10 of them, it specifically states that, and that just went out of my head. A little bit of interference. My apologies. Anyway, you'll have no idea who he is. You'll have no idea what he can do. You'll make assessment after assessment. Electronics would be just kind of like talking to a child to him, I would imagine, because computers and electronics and these types of devices only they only know what they're told to know, or just like a child. So you'd never be able to outsmart him because he already knows what everybody's going to do. The human being is only, the spectrum of ability and possibility is only so wide. Realistically, everything else is fantasy, and fantasy, he can out fantasy anyone at any time. As he's the Lord of Illusions, the Lord of Lies, the Lord of Flies, which when we started on that, personally, I think that was developed in India, and the Prime Minister there is actually the Lord of Flies, in my opinion. Just saying. He would be able to know just by connection. And by connection, people have heard me use the word collective. I just started calling it that. Someone said it was in Star Trek or something else, some kind of machine that knows everything or whatever it is. I don't watch Star Trek, so I don't know. But connection is any connection. Any connection. Everyone that watches this video is a connection. Anyone that listens to it is a connection. Anyone that goes to, I don't know, anything, just speaking of anything is a connection. Liking the same things that he does is a connection. It doesn't have to be physical. And it sure as hell doesn't have to be like right next to him, if you're ever that lucky. Because I would imagine that Satan doesn't like people at all, with great reasons. A whole lot more reasons why he would ever like any of them, but that would be the way that he is. Would greatly favor his solitude. Probably spend most of his time in reflection, remembering things that he liked or didn't like, because he would have been in existence before time was time. So as a spirit, it's not even called old anymore. It's just there. It's a force. It's an entity. And what I would imagine that entity to collectively be only because of the magnitude of just the existence alone, he would be nature. And nature would be him. It would be the Catholic religion believes that all the behavior of men, the earth directly reacts to the sins of men, which is, of course, ludicrous and way misinterpreted as usual. But in a way, that's to me, if I look at it that way, that's kind of the truth, because being in the prison, and by prison I mean he can't leave. He can't leave Earth. He's bound here. He's stuck here, and that's by the power of God. And if you believe in that, there is no greater power. They control his entire biological and molecular structure. God would be that, and anything that he would be able to do would be a permission. It would be an allowance. Now, with Satan being here, he's got automatic allowances. God probably could care less what he does. And he's certainly not caring what he does to men. And by men, I mean women and children included. Not at all. Why would he? That's what you're here for. So, or that's what we're here for. If this was real, he can do whatever he wants. And a lot of people believe he does. But going into what I said earlier about him being Jesus, is there is one thing that you have to know about, and they're both called the bringers of light. And by that, which has been heavily suppressed by several religious groups, that will forever be tormented because of it, is Satan tells the truth. Everyone calls him the master of lies. Well, the only people that started to call him the master of lies were the Jewish people. And then the Christians, of course, really took off with that. Oh, he's nothing but lies. He's the Lord of lies. Everything out of his mouth is a lie. Well, no. Everything out of his mouth is the truth. What point could Satan possibly have to lie? What's he going to lie for? For what? To convince you of something? He wouldn't give a shit to convince anybody of anything. The only thing, and it's not even really bad, the only bad thing that Satan ever did in the Jewish written Bible, and that's the Old and New Testament, was Jews wrote it. Try to convince Jesus not to do something. That's the only thing, and it was actually, if he would have listened to him, it would have favored Jesus. Probably would have lived. But it's not a separate entity. That is misinterpreted. When he showed all the kingdom, he took them up to the temple.